the IRS is expanding their workforce very soon to be able to employ, I think, in total 87,000 new agents. But there are some caveats to that, so that they can commit to more audits of private individuals and large corporations. They say mainly private corporations and such, but it will mainly be private individuals. Because,
Harry, as a libertarian, how do you feel about this?
Not great. Not great.
Literally though, 87,000, that's literally a vast army of tax collectors.
It is, but remember, only about 2,000 of those will be enforcers.
Oh, really?
And the rest of them will just be monitoring every transaction that you make and monitoring...
Putting their hand out going, mine.
Yes, and if you don't get mine right now, then we'll bring in the enforcement officers. So just to point it out that we have spoken about this before, Carl and Callum did this, our Cyberpunk Dystopia #2, and I'm sure we'll follow it up with many a sequel.
I've got #3 in the works. It's actually coming together really quickly because this sort of stuff, whenever something that is obviously Cyberpunk Dystopia comes across my timeline, I just save it in a doc. And man, this third one has come together worryingly quickly. I feel like the process is accelerating. The first one took ages, the second one took a while, and this one's nearly done. So it's just...
And this was very recent as well.
Yeah, this was only a couple of weeks ago.
So, it's going to become a weekly series at this point, as far as I'm concerned. So if you want to catch up before it gets too out of hand, I'd say go back and watch this one and watch the first one as well, because they do really have some less than cheery stuff in it.
What I loved in it, though, the first one, like, I sat down with Callum and I was like, look, this is going to be quite bad. He's like, it can't be that bad. And people in the chat were like, oh, this isn't so bad. And by the end of it, they're like, oh my God, we have to destroy the machines. Like,
yeah, I mean, we did also have the offshoot that you did with Josh, which was the man-made horrors beyond our comprehension.
Well, that was the precursor to this.
Yeah, we want to be plugged into the AI metaverse where we're just floating consciousness, cooming into infinity.
Yeah, that's literally where we're going. Cooming to our zoophile porn.
Oh, fantastic. But no, the IRS is basically part of what I can only imagine is the Democrats' attempt to develop a police state. And the IRS has always been a looming threat over American liberty and freedom, along with the implementation of the income tax that was put in about 100 or so years ago in the US.
I was going to say that. You remember Americans 200 years ago, you didn't pay any tax. In fact, you had a revolution over paying taxes, just so you know. And now you've got literally an army of IRS agents, just so you know.
The founding fathers would not be pleased. In fact, before
they'd be up in arms.
I'm not a protectionist. I'm not in favor too hard of like protectionist tariffs or anything like that. But I would much rather there just be like a mild revenue tariff on imports and exports rather than just the government taking out my pocket every single time I get paid. I hate it. And in America, it's only going to get worse because this was a part of the Inflation Reduction Act, which I've already seen people in the Democratic Party change the name or they start referring to it as, I think, the Climate, Energy and Tax Bill. Which
to inflation? Oh, that's out of control.
Yeah, to be fair, it's way more honest. But
we're printing more money, so we don't think the inflation is going to go away.
Yeah, now that we've passed it, we can be honest about it. But it was the Manchin-Schumer Inflation Reduction Act was passed. And it was it was adding an extra $80 billion to the IRS budget and hiring as many as 80,000, and I think that number has been updated now to 87,000 more auditors and agents. And I do believe as well, I looked into it, the IRS budget currently, the annual budget, is about $12 billion.
Right.
So this is an gargantuan increase in the budget.
This is mad.
It's ridiculous to pump that much more money into the agency that basically spies on and targets your own citizens for the great crime of wanting to keep hold of the money that they earned.
If anyone came along and was like, do you want to increase the size of state bureaucracy by 80,000 people? I'd be like, no. It'd be the worst thing I can imagine. And it's like, right, okay, well, we're doing it to 87,000.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. The plan is estimated to double the number of Americans audited each year. Look forward to that, guys. Small business owners and upper middle class income workers will likely be the targets. The woman who runs the woman who runs an accounting firm or a restaurant won't have the resources to fight the government in the tax court, whereas the large corporations that they are saying that they are going to be targeting will have a much easier time throwing backhanded fistfuls of cash to all of their pals in Congress to make this sort of thing go away.
And they're the people who can afford to keep their money offshore and whatnot. So they're the people who can afford to escape through the loopholes.
Well, yeah,
you
of
can't
course.
get through the
I
loop.
can't open a Swiss bank account.
Yeah.
It's not particularly easy for me.
No.
And Conservatives, they note, should be especially worried. No one should forget that this is that targeting of Conservatives was precisely what happened in the Obama-era Lois Lerner affair. The agency cherry-picked for extra scrutiny the tax returns of conservative organizations and donors who happened to oppose President Barack Obama's policies. Very interesting. And this is something that's actually quite a bipartisan thing that happens on both sides when people get into power, because Richard Nixon also, back in the 70s, admitted to using the IRS as a weapon to bully his political opponents. And that's really why this sort of thing gets introduced in the first place. It's not to help the government provide infrastructure or anything like that. No, it's a weapon, and that's all it ever has been. And then there's another article that I got that was examining it a bit more clearly from Market Watch. Will the Inflation Reduction Act help middle-class taxpayers?
So this is the cardinal rule of journalism. If the headline ends with a question mark, the answer is no.
Pretty much, yes, because they say here, they're gonna get about 80 billion extra to their budget. Out of that, only 3.2 billion, only this unfathomable amount of money will be directed towards taxpayer services like helping you out on the phone when you have questions or a problem. And from reading up on this, it does seem that, if you call up the IRS, if you've got a problem with paying your tax, it can be a bit difficult. They don't often pick up. So maybe that is something that needs to be improved.
But the other 76.4 billion is going to be directed at persecuting you.
Well, no, because some 4.8 billion will be directed towards business system modernization, because once again, I've heard that it's very, very clear that their technology is all quite outdated.
Yep.
But 45.6 billion will be directed towards enforcement of corporations and wealthy individuals, which means
you
more
where their
audits.
concerns lie, doesn't it?
Yes.
Jesus Christ.
And it calls for the 87,000 over 10 years, and they're saying that it's because of the fact that there's attrition. You'll be losing staff members over the years as well, so they're trying to just make sure that we've got enough money to be able to make up for those numbers lost with change, with a considerable amount of change, it seems. And the White House says the Inflation Reduction Act, and as a result of all these new audits, will result in $124 billion savings over 10 years, generating from collected taxes already owed by wealthy people and large corporations. And no family making less than $400,000 will see their taxes go up a penny.
Heard that before.
Yeah, we've all heard that before. The agency said its full-time headcount last year was almost 79,000, a roughly 13% decrease from its size in 2012, while the US population increased by roughly 8%. And all I can say to that is that tax agencies being understaffed and beginning to shrink can only be a good thing.
Yeah.
It's only a good thing when this thing happens. But no, Biden's come in and decided that we've all been very naughty. You in America have all been very, very naughty. You've been keeping a bit too tight a hold on your purse strings there, and daddy government needs a little bit more. And one of the things that really raised eyebrows was this job description that went out on the IRS website for the Internal Criminal Investigation Branch looking for enforcement officers. The listing said, according to an IRS job listing, carrying a firearm and being willing to use deadly force if necessary is one of the major duties. The posting also asserts that no matter what the source, all income earned, both legal and illegal, has the potential of becoming involved in crimes which fall within the investigative jurisdiction of the IRS criminal investigation. So even if you're someone just completely tangential to an investigation that they're doing, if you've never done anything illegal in your entire life, you could get a knock on your door from these guys, and they do have the ability to use deadly force.
But you can't tax someone who's dead. So what would be the point in that?
Yeah, but you can seize all of their financial assets.
I suppose so.
Yes, which is not something that the government in America is above doing.
But it's literally the Ben Shapiro meme of, well, it's at the point of a gun, barrel of a gun. Well, it literally is, actually.
It literally is. Once again, libertarians vindicated, as always. And this posting seems to come at a time when the IRS allegedly has already stockpiled a huge amount of ammo in 2022 as part of a trend that has encompassed years. No, it's true. It's ridiculous.
How much?
Well, I don't know just how much ammo, but I know how much they've spent on it because Matt Gaetz spoke about it on Fox News in June, where he said, "Call me old-fashioned, but I thought the heaviest artillery an IRS agent would need was a calculator and not $725,000 of ammunition."
It's got to be a fair number of rounds.
That is a fair number of rounds. And the following month, Gates introduced the Disarm the IRS Act that would stop any further ammo buys if it was enacted. Because, yeah, I don't like the idea.
Disarm the IRS Act. It just sounds comical.
It does. I don't like... I mean, how about abolish the IRS Act? That would be a nice start.
Disarm them like they're in a castle.
We need to send troops to the IRS.
Oh, God.
I mean...
Oh, but they are. They actually are. What am I joking about?
Some would say that, obviously, they might be involved in criminal enterprises and such, so we need to make sure the IRS has a way of enforcing these things. It's like, no, we've already got...
you have cops for that.
Yeah, we've got the police. We've got the police for that sort of thing. Why does the IRS specifically need its own private army?
Yeah.
It's very strange. And I would also say that people who are likely to be tax frauds, one, it's not always intentional. Because in America, from what I've been reading...
You've got to file your own taxes
You've got to file your own taxes. It can be very confusing with all the codes. So it could just be that grandma, who's like a landlady, she saved up her money and she's settled down with her husband in their old age. The grandkids are off doing their own thing. So, we've just got a little property that we own. She files her taxes wrong by accident. And all of a sudden, you've got the FBI bursting through the door.
The IRS Enforcement Division has arrived with a siege engine.
Yeah, and even then, people who are committing tax fraud, probably not hardened criminals. Probably not the sort of like mafioso Al Capone types that they might have been 100 years ago.
Don't they call it like white collar crime or something?
Oh, it absolutely is.
These are not generally violent people.
And the only way that I can think to explain all of this, have you heard of Sam Francis's concept of anarcho-tyranny?
Yes.
Yes. For those of you unfamiliar with it, anarcho-tyranny is when the state loses the willpower or just decides to no longer enforce laws that maintain, stability, order in the streets. Think the BLM riots of 2020, for instance, and instead just starts policing people's minor behavioral infractions just so that they can make sure it looks like they're doing something. So they tyrannize you in the most petty ways imaginable while allowing anarchy out in the streets. And, as far as I can tell, that's
pretty evil. Yeah,
it's pretty evil, but it's pretty much what's going on.
Yeah,
for the most part.
It's not an inaccurate description of what happened in 2020.
But don't worry, guys. Don't worry, guys. I know, Carl, this all sounds a bit dystopian. Sounds a little
terrible,
bit worrying.
I mean,
it sounds like we might be falling into the Matrix. But Reuters and AP...
Oh, the fact checkers
Reuters and the Associated Press, yes, have managed to debunk this with a fact check that the IRS is not hiring thousands of armed agents. I mean, strictly speaking, yes, they are, because they need about... I think they need about 2,000. And also,
they say only about 2,100 special agents carry firearms. So that is actually thousands.
Yes, and also that $45 billion on enforcement is going to someone for some reason. So very interesting.
Just the ammo stockade, is it?
Yeah, potentially. We just need to get our recreational nukes stockpiled for the IRS.
How many tanks does 400 billion or how much, 40 billion, whatever it was? How much was it? Sorry, $45.6
billion.
That's got to be a fair few tanks.
That's got to be a fair bit of artillery that you can buy
Lots
yourself.
Lots of rocket launchers. That's about half of what Joe Biden left to the Taliban, isn't it?
Yeah, roughly speaking. So the IRS is now half as deadly as the Taliban.
I was thinking to buy the gear back from the Taliban with this money.
Yeah, and AP News, Associated Press basically just said the same thing. That
Sam, is this really better than when Donald Trump was in charge? I really got to ask. I'm laughing because this is all comically bad.
Sam Harris is going to be in basically the Soviet Union in his tiny little state-provided flat, police state style. He's going to hear the door
marches outside.
Yeah, he's going to hear the IRS kick in the door of his next-door neighbour, and he's going to be sat there going, "Well, but imagine if it was Trump, though."
Yeah, imagine if it was Trump not tyrannizing us.
Yeah, and of course, people like you and I were just misrepresenting this advertisement because immediately after it got pointed out that, hold up, this is a bit strange that the IRS needs deadly force to enforce taxes. They immediately took it down and put it back up and reworded it without that clause in it right there, even though it's still actually going to be the case.
Now, that's the best thing. When someone gets caught and they just take it down and put it back up without the thing that you objected to. That really calms my concerns.
That just demonstrates
allays my fears.
It's just honest. It's just honest.
Actually, we don't want them for that anymore. It's like, really, don't you? Okay.
Oh, all right. If you say so. And I found this amazing Cope article from a website called Mother Jones, who I can.
Mother Jones used to be a women's magazine.
I thought it sounded like that, given the name. I'd never really heard of them, but they say that, they're one of those ones like The Guardian who say that, we're just funded by our readers so that we can do our hard-hitting journalism, speak truth to power. And this man, Michael Mechanic, goes through all of this. And he says, no, it's not hiring 87,000 new agents to go after ordinary taxpayers. And he kind of sums up the attitude that I see as being prevailing among leftists. With taxes, where he's saying he goes on about the poor feel pity for them. The cash-strapped IRS from 2010 to 2018, the IRS received 9% more tax returns, but despite that, its annual budget was slashed by almost $3 billion,
Great.
From less than $15 billion.
Sorry, just look at the perverse incentives. Right, so what are we going to do? We're going to increase the IRS's funding for the amount of tax they bring back. Like, that's how Roman tax collectors used to work.
The fantastic thing as well is they keep saying, if we, once the IRS is in place, once we get all of this in place, we'll be able to make up $700 billion on the deficit. And then you go, how much does the Inflation Act spend? $760 billion. So it doesn't even cover its own costs.
But the thing is, it's like you're completely missing the point. It's like this guy's missing the point. Like, it's not good if the IRS is being successful and earning money, like a profitable endeavor. That's not good. Like, that's what tax farming is. It's good for me, the citizen, to pay as little tax as possible. And so minimizing the amount of budget the IRS gets, regardless of how much it brings in, is what's actually good. Like, what a totally backwards set of incentives.
Yeah, and he also, in a tweet that he posted on Twitter, if you go to the next one, Michael, he kind of sums it all up here, and he's like, look at how evil it is that all of these tax audits went down from between when it was Obama in charge to when it was Trump in charge in 2017.
Oh, no!
And I just see this and I go, fantastic, brilliant. And he focuses on, look at how $10 million or more positive income got slashed ridiculous amounts on the amount of audits. Good.
But so did everyone. Look,
everybody did. So I don't see the problem.
Minus 60% for 25 to 50,000. That's brilliant.
Yeah, it is brilliant. But it shows that the point of this whole the way the leftists look at tax, it's not to raise revenue for the government. It's not to be able to, it's not even to redistribute wealth. Really, at the end of the day, it's just to punish rich people.
Yeah,
it's just purely motivated by envy, because he's saying like, it's just evil that it's $10 million or more got slashed so much. But I'm sorry, all the leftists that I've met, if you were earning like 75,000 to 100,000, they hate you and think you're an evil person. If it's 50 to 75,000, they hate you and think you're an evil person. If it's anything just below, if it's anything that escapes the poverty line, they think you're an evil person and should have all of your money confiscated and redistributed by the state.
Yes, another feather in Trump's cap here.
Yeah, this is only a good thing, and the fact that Biden is looking to reverse this is only a bad thing. And and then people have looked into it and said, the New York Post looked into it and were like, if you analyse it, it looks like the Inflation Reduction Act will actually probably end up costing the middle class $20 billion in new taxes.
Shock and surprise.
I know, big surprise right there. And then somebody released this footage, Luke Radowski.
Oh, Luke's good lad.
Yeah, he found this footage of what I can only imagine is going to be the new batch of enforcement officers, the kinds of people who are going into the IRS to do this sort of thing.
They're going to be very diverse, aren't they?
Oh, very diverse, and not entirely able either. Who knew stealing money from poor people was going to be this fun? Look at all of them with big smiles on their faces. Can you wait to persecute people who filed their taxes wrong this year? Ooh, can't wait.
Well, I tell you what, you need like the Oompa Loompa music playing.
do 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 do. But there is something I do.
Gun as well, Jesus.
Yeah, I know. For the interests of journalistic integrity, I do need to point out that having looked into it, the clip is from 2017, so it's not the recent recruits they've been doing. And they were a bunch of accounting students. Right. Okay. But the point, reading through it, the point was though that these are accounting students, and the IRS was, well, you could just go into normal accounting, or you could work for us, where we'll give you guns and let you chase down criminals who've been evading their taxes. And so who knows who it is exactly that they're hiring right this moment. But the IRS, I've looked into it, they've got all their diversity requirements, all their diversity commitments, etc., etc. So if their commitment to diversity hiring has probably only got worse since when this get out, I wouldn't expect the people who are going to be joining the IRS to be much better. So as much as the dystopian IRS police state is looming over America right now, at the very least, you can hope that you might be able to outrun these people.
We'll expect a hiring freeze on white men coming anytime soon.
Oh, absolutely.
To hit their diversity targets.
But yes, but you've also got to remember that whether or not these sorts of people look pathetic, whether or not these are the sorts of people they end up hiring, they still have the power of state-backed coercion behind them, and that will only ever hurt the little guy.
If you enjoyed that segment from the podcast of Lotus Eaters, you can go over to lotuseaters.com to get all the premium content on our website, such as John Wheatley and I are discussing the politics and philosophy of Studio Ghibli. I promise I'm not a weeb. If you'd like to follow the rest of the content I'm putting out, you can go over to Getter and follow me at @con_Tomlinson. Thank you and goodbye.